Welcome in. My name's Rick Farron, and we're certainly glad to have you on our Six Screens live program tonight. The name of the program, by the way, is Watchtower Insider. Barbara Anderson, she tells all. Now, tonight we're going to be talking about shunning, and you had to hear it this week. It's all over the internet. All they've been talking about. The biggest story this week is all about shunning and how the Watchtower has removed a couple of videos from the convention, convention this summer. So Barbara's going to be talking about that. We'll have the audience as well check in with us later. But let's bring Barbara Anderson on right now and check in with her. Hello, Barbara.
Hi, Rick. Hi, everybody.
There you are. So we get you back on with us, and we're looking forward to tonight's program. So what did you think, Barbara, of what the Watchtower did this week in removing those two shunning videos from their convention this summer?
Well, I was surprised, of course, but there were a number of assemblies, and they had the very strongest language in their program about shunning, and they were willing to put that on for the rest of the season of assemblies. What made them change their mind is the question. What have you heard, Rick, about that?
Well, yeah, no, I've been kind of studying it all week, and we're going to play, friends. If you didn't get to see, Watchtower took it down, but we did get it downloaded, so we do have it. And I'm going to play it here in just a short while, so you can.
Go ahead. Where?
Yeah, well, if you play it, I'll play it for the people. In fact, there's two videos they took down, but there's another one they probably should have took down too. But I got all three of them downloaded. So what we'll do, I'm going to play the video. Now, let me just give you a little heads up on what's going on here. It's going to open up. The first clip I'm going to show you is showing a young girl, and she's shunning her mother. You'll see it, and then we'll get to talk a little bit about it. So let's play the clip now. Let me get that up so we can see it. If you're on our Six Screens network, you'll hear it, and I know you'll find it interesting. What I'm going to do, Barbara, I'm also just going to do one thing here. I want the Six Screens video suite. We have a number of people on the suite tonight, so I would like to try to get them on as well to see it. So just give me 1 second, and we'll try to get that clip up here. We'll try to get it playing. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's get the clip up right now, and let's see if we can't make sense out of this thing. It really was horrific, even for the Watchtower to even think about putting this up. Really, they're not getting good reputation because of it. Let me scroll down here to the videos. So we got it right here. Let me just I get so many things in here, but we'll get it. The video clip. Okay, it's this one right here. And so this is the video clip. This is the first one. Now watch the girl here. She's putting her makeup on and thinking about her mother. Let's tune in.
Mom's disfellowshipping still feels so raw.
Elsa, please speak up. I miss you so much. I just want to hear your voice.
It's such a struggle. I miss her. She taught me the truth, gave me a stable life. She was my closest friend. What's the harm in just calling once in a while? To chat. Maybe I can even help her to come back to Jehovah.
Okay, so can you,
So-
I'll go directly through you.
So that was the
What's
that was the clip. So Barbara, did you get to see it all?
And it's accessible.
All right. We just got to mute a couple of people here. We got all right. We got to mute a couple of people on the telephone line. So yeah, so there was the clip, and we got another clip to show as well. What went on here is the young girl, Jehovah's Witness girl, was getting a call from her mother. She wouldn't answer it. Her mother was just disfellowshipped. So that's kind of, that's kind of cruel to not even answer the phone when your mother calls you. But we know that happens. We know for a fact that happens. So what I would say here, what I would say at this juncture is the Watchtower didn't like that one, but there's another clip. I'm going to play the second part of it. So let's play the second part of it, and then we can touch base and let you know exactly what's going on. So this is video 2. All right, this is video 2. Let's listen in.
Abel was essentially a spiritual orphan, but regardless of what his parents chose, he listened to Jehovah and patiently waited on him to fulfill his promises.
I never thought of it that way. What has Jehovah promised me if I patiently wait? Spiritual brothers? Sisters? And mothers. If I focus on what I do have and wait patiently, someday what I don't have may even come back to Jehovah.
That's the video, Barbara. And a couple of things I noticed. Now we can kind of dissect it a little bit, so the audience can basically understand what happened here. Is the Watchtower has been really ramping up their feelings toward shunning people, even close relatives and friends. In this case, it's a mother. And this is the first time I can ever remember in any of my history with the Watchtower of them actually showing a mother being shunned, or even talking about a mother being shunned. I don't even remember reading that in the Watchtower, but they were pretty bold to come out. Can you hear me, Barbara?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I want to make sure because I see that you look very concerned about this clip, because I think you can touch. I think this can touch home with you. But anyways,
Right. Being a mother and being shunned by our son now for over 20 years. So we have a very vested interest in these videos. Yeah.
oh yeah. So well, what I'm seeing here is the Watchtower is quite brazen, actually putting that video up, but they did take it down, and I'll give you reasons for that. But they were brazen, I believe, in putting that up. Here's a mother. You only have one mother, and yet they're willing to actually show a video of a young girl in the Kingdom Hall, and she's looking around, and she's seeing other brothers and sisters there, and she's saying, well, even though I don't have my mother, in the new system, I'll have a new spiritual family, and I'm not really going to lose anything, but I'll have all these new family members, so to speak. That is terrible. And then the other thing that I found really despicable is it shows her at a table, the young girl shunning her mother. It shows her at a table reading the scriptures and, connecting with what the Watchtower is saying. Well, she's not going to be able to connect any scriptures in the Bible with shunning your mother. As a matter of fact, she's going to find just the opposite, not only in the Old Testament, but in the New Testament. And she's going to find that you honor your mother and father. Why don't the witnesses ever bring that up? Is it really, do you honor your mother and father when you break up a family? That is terrible. So I'm just thinking out loud here that they really stuck their neck out. And whoever allowed this video to be put out in the first place, I'll tell you what, I think they're probably in big time trouble at the Watchtower. But, you know, in Exodus 20:20, it talks about the 10 commandments. It gives the 10 commandments. And honor your mother and father is commandment number 5. But it's the only commandment that actually has a promise attached to it. Now you say, well, what do I mean by that? Well, when it says honor your mother and father, it gives you a reason why you would do that. And it says that if you do that, you will do fine. Your life will be filled with joy and you'll find much happiness. But how can you go through life shunning your mother, Barbara? That is unbelievable. But you're being shunned by your own son.
Well, we were mainly at fault, I think, here, because we trained him from infancy to do what the Watchtower says. And in his mind, that's what the Bible says. So what are you going to do, you know? We don't especially put forth any hard feelings in this because it's useless. And but we don't know what his life is like. We don't know what the children are like. So we're certainly missing out on a lot here. But if this was God's will, so be it. But is it really God's will? And there's so much information out there on shunning that's been published by the Watchtower. And isn't it interesting that just recently, the fellow who is the overseer of the Public Information Department, his last name is Hendricks, and he said this: we don't. Shunning would be cutting somebody off and pretending they don't exist. That's not the case. How could he say this when for real, we experience shunning? Rick, are you shunned?
I am shunned, yes. I have numerous family members that shun me. I've got at least, I'd say, 65, 70 family members, including children. And it's not a good feeling. And of course, even my wife, Susan, here has 2 daughters that shun her. But Barbara, I'm going to tell you, I'm thinking we may see the shunning policy kind of disappear here. And I'm going to give you some reasons for it. You know, they're in big time hot water right now in a number of countries, specifically in Norway.
Exactly.
And as you know, in Europe, you're the one that told me this in the first place years ago because I didn't know it. But they get money from the government for charity status, so to speak, and so they make millions of dollars. So Norway does not like the way the Jehovah's Witnesses treat people when they leave the Watchtower, especially young children. You know, minors, I should say, because, you know, you need a place to live. You have to rely on your parents. You're not old enough to flap your wings. And many Jehovah's Witness parents, once someone is disfellowshipped and shunned, they kick them right out of the house. So Norway's upset about that. And that's not the only country, but they've already deregistered the Watchtower in Norway. Norway no longer is a registered religion, so they're not going to get their money. They're not going to be able to perform marriages and I guess even funerals. That privilege has been taken away from them in Norway. And now we have Germany, Denmark, Belgium. They're also all starting to look at the crooked side of the Watchtower. So, you know, when this video was put up, And here they are trying to get their status back in Norway. Why would they have a video like that? Somebody probably said, take it down. We're trying to get our charitable status back. Don't play that. So I'm thinking it's more of that. Some people have suggested there was a story about Rebecca Varney. Was that her name? I don't have it in front of me.
Vardy, Vardy.
Barty. Okay. In fact, she was. That was also a big story on in England, in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, it was in numerous journals and newspapers or on the internet. I think there was 5 major media that carried the story. It was a big story because she is married to a very important man. And
that's okay. Just a little technical issue there. Go ahead. We're listening. Yep.
Yeah, she's. I took a lot of notes. I got so many notes that I can't find my what I'm looking for here. But she has she's married to this Jamie Vardy, and he's a prominent footballer. So I just assume that's synonymous with football in this country. I don't know. So the Guardian had an article. The BBC had an article. And 3 other news companies had articles. So why did she make such a big splash about this? Well, she told about how she was molested, not necessarily by a JW, but she said that the elders, she told her mother told the elders, and then the elders didn't want any information to come out on this, so they just swept it under the rug. Well, apparently Rebecca had a terrible time over this, and this was between the ages of 11 and 15. You have to excuse my voice. It's very rough tonight, and I don't know why, but it is.
It's probably the allergies.
Yeah. Well, that's the time of year it is in the spring here, and she was. Her mother left her father after a while, but I understand her father is not a witness. He left it, and she's left association with her mother for years. She hasn't had any. Hers is a very dramatic story to get the kind of interest that she got. And I got to thinking about this. She was making a big deal, and it was on Channel 4 in England, where whatever that was, which I couldn't access. But it is discussed that she had 4 ex-witnesses that she discussed the situation, and they told their story about their shunning and their experience with molestation and how it was never addressed correctly. Was it reported to the authorities? Now, because these people are very popular in England, they have a big listening audience. And this is the way people are finding out the negatives about Jehovah's Witnesses. Usually years ago, they were just annoyed with Jehovah's Witnesses, coming to the door and disturbing them, or having different beliefs. So beliefs was the question always. How to get them to understand the Bible's beliefs. So you discuss Trinity, you discuss that. Jehovah's Witnesses were known for trying to push their ideas on paradise, earth, and that type of thing. But now we have a whole nother situation. And how about this? What about the world shunning Jehovah's Witnesses? Because they're so upset and there was a discussion between her a few days later, and I think it was 3 other women on one of those women's program, and they were very upset over all of this. So if Watchtower is getting hit back, what they have done to us by mandating shunning, well, not so much if a person wants to come back. Suppose they committed it was a moral issue, but they want to come back. And a year later, they were usually back. So shunning is not really that definite in situations like that. But if you don't want to come back, that's when everything blows up in your life. And that's where it becomes a permanent situation with your friends and relatives.
Well, it does. It becomes very, very permanent. And thank you for bringing that up about Rebecca Vardy. But the reason why a lot of people online, that program, Barbara, it's called Wagatha Christie. It's a takeoff on Agatha Christie. And it's very big. It's one of the biggest programs in all of the United Kingdom. And she got a lot of viewers. And now even that program is being nominated for be like an Emmy here in this country.
Yeah, right.
So it's being nominated, but you're right with that. She got in a tiff. How this program even started is she got in a tiff with another woman whose husband was they call it football, but it's like rugby. It's not like
Oh, is that what that is? Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. But anyways, what they do is they got in a tiff. They were, trying to outdo each other. My husband's better than yours. So they got into a big court case over there. And the other woman's husband sued Rebecca. And they went to court, and it was like the O.J. Simpson trial. In this country, it was really, really big. So she was a witness, and of course, it's now one of the biggest programs she ever did. And some of the people were thinking that because that came out and she was being shunned, that they would take the videos down from the convention this year. But that's not the reason, I don't think. I believe it has more to do with, Barbara, right now, we're so glad to have a number of countries, as we said earlier. Norway, Japan, Germany, Belgium, Sweden. Yes, those are 5 countries right there that are now looking into the shunning practices of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm going to tell you something. It doesn't look good in Japan for these guys.
That's exactly right. Japan there were a number of articles. I put it on my Facebook page from last year. And it was some woman who was some type of job she had with the government. I think she was very well known, and she was raised a witness. And she started to expose the shunning issue in Japan. That is still an ongoing consideration by the government there. That's not finished.
Well, I'll tell you what, Barbara. Now, when you first started becoming a whistleblower on the Watchtower back in early 2000s, we didn't have countries on our side. We didn't. The news media was starting to get on our side, but now we, so-called apostates, ex-witnesses, call us what you like, we are now getting governments to help us in our fight against this evil organization. And it's all about money. It's all about money. And I would love to be a fly on the wall at Watchtower. I would, because I'll tell you what, I think what we have is a bunch of governing body members that, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. So that's the old saying, but I think it's true. And somebody let this out. And when it got out, somebody said, "What? Get that thing down fast." So fortunately, a number of us have got it. And if anyone wants the video clip, you can write me at jwworldnews@gmail.com. I'll send you the clip from the video from the convention, so you can have it in your own files. Because it's going to get a lot of people, Barbara.
Well, sure. This they put out this book, the Public Information Department. I put that out. I call it a manual, but it's computer for the computerized world. And in there, they're changing the language of that Watchtower used to use. There's no longer, I'm not getting off the subject on how this is all together, I believe. This is a public information department, and they have this manual that we were all really fascinated with reading it, where they're changing the vocabulary of the organization. So they're reinventing themselves. And of course, the one major issue that we all grabbed onto was the fact that they don't have members anymore. So Jehovah's Witnesses are not members. And so years ago, I mean, that was part of our vocabulary. Well, this is all legal reasons. Everything is for legal reasons with the Watchtower. So here they are trying to put on a new image, and look at what happens. Their image is being hit hard, like with the Norway, and this is all being picked up by the human rights organizations across Europe. So Watchtower recently started their own human rights organization to advertise how wonderful they are. You know, Rutherford was known for his bombastic statements that he made over and over and over again. And you go through the old literature, the books and the booklets and whatever, listen to him on the radio. He uses phrases, the same phrases over again, and they're very, very rude, hard-hitting, nasty. But you know, if you say something often enough, you can convince people that what you're saying is true. And that's exactly what politicians do, by the way. Well, this organization had certain words and sentences and phrases. We use them over and over again. Well, we don't use them anymore because those are statements were perhaps rude, or we were fighting over issues to do with dogma. Well, they don't do that anymore. This is an organization that is trying to capture people's interest by what a wonderful group they are. And that's what this guy Hendricks does. He puts out those articles and through newspapers all across the country. We talked about that once before. And so he's trying to build a new image. And XJWs are talking about the reality. Why are they putting out a new image? If the old image was great, well, it wasn't great. That's why they're reinventing themselves. They don't have the growth any longer in converts. So people are hearing the negatives. That's why I mentioned, if this keeps up, it's going to cause the world to shun Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's see how they like it. As these people listen to not only this Vardy woman, but I put on my website yesterday another case. A man, he has written a book on his shunning. And he said he was shunned before he was actually disfellowshipped because he was gay. And so the mistreatment of people is the problem. And that's why the human rights issue in Europe is a big one. And so you have the treatment of children who are being disfellowshipped, punished, shunned, whatever, in Norway. That was one of the biggest issues of that.
Well, that's no doubt. I mean, that costs them a lot of money. Hey, we do have someone who wants to come in. Dick, did you want to say something? Go ahead, Dick.
Good.
Yeah, Rick and Barbara, I'd like to just talk about the 10 million pound gorilla that's in the room that nobody can see. And this gorilla is purple and has 3 heads. And that is in the mid 80s, the Watchtower came out with an article and it said, show love to erring ones. Those that were disfellowshipped, you could have them over for dinner, you could preach them, you could talk to them. And it was a wonderful thing. And I remember it distinctly because my sister-in-law got disfellowship for apostasy. And she used to do a lot of babysitting for us. We used to have her over quite a bit. And then she got this fellowship. So we said, told my boys, your Aunt Mabel is dead. We can't talk to her anymore. They were crying. They were so upset. And we didn't have anything to do with her. Then about 6 months later, out comes this article to show love to erring ones. So we started having her over for dinner and preaching to her and having her babysit again and all that good stuff. And, you know, she was a wonderful person. She just didn't believe in the rhetoric that was Jehovah's Witnesses. So the Watchtower comes out with another article saying that we are going to go back to our old policy and disfellowship people and not talk to them and shun them and pretend that they are dead. Well, I mean, it certainly wasn't a loving thing to do, but it just goes to show that this doctrine does not come from Jehovah God or Yahweh or anybody like that. It comes from the governing body. They are the dictators. They're the policymakers. It comes from those liars that are the Watchtower.
Well,
it's going to be stopping soon.
I appreciate what you're saying. You have made very valid points. I would like to make a point too, though. I remember quite a number of years ago, there was a book that came out, and James book. Remember that, Rick?
Oh yeah, that book was in Dunlap and
Dunlap, and so that was, of course, before the fiasco with Ray Francis fellowshipping and his disfellowshipping. But in that book, it showed a more loving attitude. I actually discussed that with some of the senior writers, and they remember that time and they liked it, where there was a kinder, gentler organization that was coming into being. In fact, if you saw a disfellowshipped person, his car broke down on the side of the road, the book actually made mention of stopping and help change a tire, which you wouldn't think of helping anybody now who's disfellowshipped. So they were working at this. But when the situation with Ray Franz erupted, that's really when the hard-hearted people got involved. And we felt the results of that, the use of the word apostasy and that harshness concerning anybody that was thinking about another religion. It was the 1980, and that was the whole Ray Franz issue. And so from then on, the situation got more and more difficult. But why would in this convention video, the original one showed such harshness towards a beloved daughter or a beloved mother or a close relative. And why would they do that when they came out with their updated Elder's Manual? And that just came out a few weeks ago. And in there, the same words since 2010 regarding when to call a judicial hearing is mentioned. It's chapter 12 in that Shepherding the Flock of God. And it says there that association with non-relatives, disfellowship non-relatives, would warrant a judicial action. But the very next sentence says, if a publisher, it's a paragraph, if a publisher in the congregation is known to have unnecessary association with disfellowshipped or disassociated relatives who are not in the household, elders should use the scriptures to counsel and reason with him. Review with him information from the Remain in God's Love book, page 241. If it is clear that a Christian is violating the spirit of the disfellowshipping decree in this regard and does not respond to counsel, he would not qualify for congregation privileges, which would require one to be exemplary. He would not be dealt with judicially unless there is persistent spiritual association. Spiritual is italicized, or a persistent openly criticizing the disfellowshipping decision. So in one side of their mouth, they say, don't talk about spiritual things. You can associate with your relatives. And then when you see this video shown at the assemblies, at the very same time, the elders' book has the opposite. I mean, it's very easy not to talk about spiritual things when you are out of the organization, because who wants to talk about this stuff anymore? And you don't agree with it anyway, but you love your relatives. I would never ever bring it up. In fact, I said that to my son one time. I said, I don't want to discuss this. He wanted to keep discussing it with me, and I was already out. I wasn't disfellowship, but I wasn't going to meetings. But he kept on and on that eventually he got so upset over this that I had to hang up the phone. And of course, he called me back, and I said, well, you weren't listening to me. I didn't want to talk about Jehovah's Witnesses. So here we have this advice, and my son is an elder, or was an elder. I would assume he still is. And yet he was obnoxious about this. Well, the witnesses, they want to, if they love you, they want to bring you back in the organization. And so they can be persistent, but we can remind them. The elders' book says we don't talk about spiritual things. I'm not interested in talking about disfellowshipping, so we can associate. Now, there is an additional problem, and that's a psychological one. And that is one that is hard to deal with. Rick, do you remember how do you treat someone who's a JW and has joined the military?
Well, I'm not sure. I kind of
that?
I kind of remember it.
Yeah, it's not written anywhere how you should, what you should do, how to treat someone who is a witness and joins the military, because the government would come after you, because that's sedition. You cannot punish someone for joining the military. So the Watchtower never says anything in any of their books. There's no place that you can go to. But yet, why is it that all the witnesses know that you shun that person who joins the military? It's unwritten, but you do it.
Well, they're not going to put that in print. They're not going to put that. That's what got Rutherford in his band of witnesses in prison in 1918.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is this similarly with this in the elders' book. They tell you that don't talk about spiritual things. You can associate with your relatives. But do your relatives want to associate with you when you're disfellowshipped? It's almost a similar thing. If you are disfellowshipped, they really, not all of them, but many of them, they don't want to associate with you. Even if the elders read this and say to the entire assembly, you can do it, you could associate, but most of them wouldn't, because I think it's so written in your brain that you shun somebody who leaves the organization, even if they're not disfellowshipped. you don't want to deal with them. Once they've been in it and they just drift away, you don't want to associate with them. You have nothing in common.
There's been a ton of articles, Barbara. In fact, I was reviewing some articles this week. Major newspapers have been picking up on it. And, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't the only ones that shun. Their punishment is a lot more harsh. But, this, as I mentioned earlier, Barbara, when we showed the video clip of the convention, the Have Patience convention this summer, and that video clip that was up there for one convention weekend, that's the first time ever, as long as I've been involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses in the organization and out of the organization, that they brought up the fact of shun your mother. I never saw that before. Shun your mother or your father. And as I mentioned earlier, they're taking a quantum leap when they say that, because if there's any witness that knows their Bible, we know darn well that there's no biblical reason to shun anyone. Never mind your mother and your father. And the thing is, Barbara, and I know you'll agree with me, there's nothing more important in life than your family and your friends. Seriously. Both of these parties, they offer our life, they offer us joy, and they give us growth. Family is there to help us, and you really need that. And that's one thing the Watchtower does, is take the most precious thing, and studies have been done. Family is more important than money, and they've taken the most precious thing they possibly can away from you, a very valuable gift. And they've been doing this for years, but boy, I'll tell you, these nations, as we said earlier, they're catching up on them, Barbara,
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick thought on the military. As most of the audience knows, I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, and when I was starting to study the Bible, and they told me absolutely you can't be in uniform and be in the military. And then they said, well, of course, if any person that joins the military would have to salute the flag. That's just an absolute certainty. And if you salute the flag and you're baptized Jehovah's Witness, you'd be disfellowshipped. So they got you, they come in and they got you going. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's what they do, Dick. It's just a heinous act. I can't possibly, even though my mother was a loyal witness and I was an apostate when she died, she wouldn't talk to me. But never would I treat my mother disrespectfully. Never would I not want to talk to her. That is evil when you would do that. And you have to honor your mother and your father. And like I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to bring it up again because we have a lot more people listening in right now than earlier at the outset of the program. But I'm going to tell you that if you go to Exodus 20:20, I'm not preaching, I'm just trying to let you know the Watchtower uses scriptures. They use scriptures, so I'm going to use scriptures to refute what they say. Exodus 20:20, we all know what that is. That's the 10 Commandments. And honor your mother and father is the 5th commandment. Now, that's the only commandment that has a promise, as I mentioned earlier to you folks in the program. And in that program earlier, I mentioned that the promise is if you honor your mother and father, life will be good for you. You will have God's favor if you do that and you don't disrespect your mother and your father. But here we are disrespecting your mother and father when the Watchtower tells you to shun. Okay, we got you back, Barbara. I don't know what happened there, but we got you back. So what do you think?
Yeah, the screen went black.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Rick?
Yes, Randy.
I just want to briefly, since the subject of military has been brought up, all three of the organization books, although they did not use the word military the way they phrased it, they said if a person joined an organization that went contrary to God, something like that, they used the scripture about beating your swords into plowshares. So everybody knew that meant joining the military. That person would have disassociated himself. In other words, he did it to himself. And then in another sentence, they say you treat the disassociated ones the same as disfellowshipped. In other words, you shun them. But they still danced around it.
Oh,
But in my taped telephone conversation with Watchtower attorney, I got them to come right out and say it, that they do shun the ones that join the military.
That's an interesting point. Very much so, Randy.
Well, Randy, you have children, at least one that I know of, that has absolutely nothing to do with you, right?
That's right. When I saw that video, it reminded me so much of that daughter shunning her mom. Because the last time we went, a number of years ago, that daughter, just for my wife knocking on the door, she called the police and had criminal trespasses charges against her.
For her own mother.
Yes, and her own mother's no threat, wasn't there. Said, she told the police, I haven't been here to see my daughter in 15 years. I just wanted to see if she's doing okay. How can this group of people go knocking on your door every Saturday, but I can't knock on my daughter's door like once every 10 or 15 years?
Good point. Oh, it's such a terrible act. It's almost, when we stop and think about it, if we really just stop and think, we didn't think much when we were witnesses, but if we just think how bad that is, you don't think about it. The witnesses will say it's tough love. They will say that, no, we love you. That's why we do it. That's crazy. You don't.
But the information Barbara was just reading from the Shepherd book about how you could associate with them. That my daughter will never do that, because then that means they won't be an example, and her husband will lose his office of being an elder.
That's right. My son would never do it either. But they put that there for legal reasons, because that's what they use in court. So picture the court setting, picture the judge, and the case is about Jehovah's Witnesses broke up my family. And Watchtower attorney said, oh, we did not do that. Our own instruction manual to all of those who are the shepherds of the flock. Look what it says here. So all I have to do is just not talk about spiritual things or complain being disfellowshipped. Everything's fine. They did it in Canada. They did it a number of years in Canada, and the witnesses won the case. Because the outsiders, they don't understand the psychological impact that the Watchtower has over us in ways that can't even hardly be expressed or put in, they dare not to put in writing. This manual that came out last year on disfellowshipping, I call it a manual, it's 800 pages on disfellowshipping. Everything they've ever said is in there. It came out last year, and then this year, they have this situation to deal with. But last year, this 837 pages, I think it was, it discusses every aspect of how wonderful this organization is, and how this is an act of love. You've got just page after page of all of this stuff, and so the psychology behind it a year ago was different than the psychology that is coming into this organization this year. But we've seen this before. We've seen dramatic changes in this organization. They say that they are no part of the world, but they are affected by what the world has done in many, many ways, and we all have seen this.
Well, Barbara, I was reading this really, really good article. As a matter of fact, it's right out of Worcester, Massachusetts, up here where I live. And a man wrote an article. He's a professor in the Holy Cross. It's a Catholic college up here. And so he wrote an article all about the Jehovah's Witnesses and how they shun. And there's an estimated, it's about 100,000, but 100,070, this is an older article, but it's now about 100,000 Jehovah's Witnesses are disfellowshipped every year. And roughly 2/3, in fact, 2/3, it's a known fact that they never return. And see, the witnesses, as I said earlier, they treat this as tough love. See, they
Yeah.
think your son and my children and my family, they think this is loving me, and your son is loving you because they won't talk to you. So, I mean, what's the best way to get someone back into the fold? This is
Well,
what's crazy to me, you know?
well,
Okay, go ahead, sister. Go ahead. Come on in. Say hello to us.
mhm.
Hi, it's Martha. I hadn't talked to you in a very long time.
Yeah.
I apologize for that.
Oh, that's fine. I accept it.
Okay. I had a couple of thoughts while Barbara was talking, and then when Dick called in on the military thing. I mean, can you just imagine what was revealed, considering what was revealed by Ray Fran's book? Had we known all of that in the 60s, there would have been a riot in almost every kingdom hall in the United States for how many of our young brothers who were getting drafted were going to jail or having to do voluntary service in awful places like mental institutions to satisfy the government requirements. Can you just imagine? I mean, how hypocritical was that? And they were not being honest with us. So I would love to hear more on that. And then I did have one short thought as Barbara was talking about family members still talking to you about spiritual things after you have clearly disassociated or been disfellowshipped. I honestly believe my mother was still counting time.
Oh, my.
You're supposed to laugh.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's the mental makeup of the witnesses, you know. That's just the way it is. You don't realize that it is happening to you when you're a witness for many years, and you don't understand that that you are thoroughly brain manipulated by an organization. And then when they change something, then they re-manipulate you again. And it goes on and on. It's such a sad situation. You know, this business, like I mentioned before, this last year they came out with this material, 837 pages on Jehovah's Witnesses and disfellowshipping. There were 144 times in that material that they mentioned shunning. Isn't that something?
Unbelievable.
144 times. And they said it was, like Rick said, it was to bring you back. It was an act of love. But in that very same group of that tremendous, I mean, there's so much material in this. You could read and read and read. They also, they have people who are being paid to protect religion. And perhaps where many people who are listening are familiar, and many of them aren't, with people by the name of, I can't even say it because I don't speak the language, but Massimo Interoc, I don't know it, Introugine, the founder and managing director of the Center for Studies on New Religion. And this other fellow, George Chrysidis, these are people the Watchtower pays. They consider themselves academics, and they work to say what different religions want to be said. And so they have to protect religion. But I found interesting.
I had a thought on that, Barbara.
Pardon me?
Let me tell you what the new religion is.
What?
The world.
The new religion is transgendering children.
Amen.
Because their families and them will shun you if they know that you are have a different viewpoint than they do on that subject.
Well,
that's pretty much where I come from on that. And they are not doing out of love or kindness. They don't want to hear what other people have to think or say on the subject.
Well, there's
and my family is deliberately.
I agree. There's plenty of issues.
And my grandchildren over this, and I didn't even have to say anything about it. But it's just because they know that I'm a Christian, that you know, I'm heterosexual. I know the difference between a man and a woman. I can actually define a woman. They don't want to have nothing to do with me. And here I am, 70 years old. I can't even get my son-in-law to cut my grass. I can't get my grandchildren to come over and help me with any housework. Take me on a visit to the hospital or a doctor? No way. Yeah. Now that is not love. And so Jehovah's Witnesses are trying to paint shunning as love.
Yes.
They're totally mistaken, and they will not be able to convince people of the world who are in our position on this.
Yes, not with the type of social media we have, where one program like the one that Darty did reaches millions and millions of people. So how welcome is a witness at a door in England right now?
Or Pennsylvania right now.
Or Pennsylvania, exactly.
I want to bring this up, Barbara, because as I do the news and go over everything for the week, and I visit sites where Jehovah's Witnesses are making comments. So a Jehovah's Witness made this comment: get your barf bag ready. So they were talking about the videos being taken down. So a Jehovah's Witness, an active witness, wrote on a Jehovah's Witness site. She said, or he, I'm not sure, that this is not a cult. These people that we're shunning, they are shunned in such a loving, beautiful way.
Oh, gosh.
How do you shun someone in a beautiful way? That is, I'll tell you, I gagged when I read that. Shunning in such a beautiful way. That's what the witnesses do. They shun people in a beautiful way. Oh, yeah.
Well, the person that said that has never been shunned. And so they just read what the Watchtower says. Oh, we're showing you we love you. And then they go and put an experience in the magazine from someone who was shunned and who comes back in the organization to deal with their mother or to be back in the family arrangement. And they'll quote
this. If anybody has any question what gaslighting is, that's the definition, what Rick just said.
Yeah, but they'll quote when someone comes back in and says, thank you, Mom. Thank you, Watchtower. Thank you, Jehovah's Witnesses, for shunning me. It made me realize I woke up to how much I love Jehovah and his organization. And they take that and they run with it. And that's in this type of 837 pages they put out last year on Jehovah's Witnesses and disfellowshipping. Now, I happen to know people who were out of the organization because I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've talked to people who call me. So many times have people gone back in the organization, have no use for it. They go back in and they speak with the elders, and they say what the elders want them to hear. They're reinstated. And you know what? They get to visit and be back home with the friends, the relatives, and they are never approached again about anything that they say, because they don't say anything. They go to meetings once in a while. In fact, some people have never gone back to a meeting. They get reinstated, never go back to a meeting, and then they get to see their relatives. And so there's different ways people are dealing with this over the years. And I'm not advocating anything. I'm just telling you the experiences that people will do. And the elders will accept it, because there's nothing much they can do. The person has been reinstated, and there's no further complaint about them. So this one man, he would go once every 6 months to a meeting and sit in the back. And so, but he in fact, he moved in with back in with his mother and father. He said, I love my father. And he said, I did this to be with my father. He said, my mother was never, ever a good mother. my father was. And he said, so I take care of my father in his old age. And so people know how to manipulate the system too, but they shouldn't have to. They should not have to do this. In fact, there's an article that I have looked at over the years. It's in the Watchtower in 1919, and it actually talks about this situation. And I think it's March of 1919. So how do you deal with those that injure others or punishing fellow? It's called March 1st, 1919 Watchtower. It also is in the March 15th, 1906 Watchtower, punishing fellow members. And what punishment should be applied to these? And they had already mentioned different things that some do to their brothers, that, you know, they're perhaps they have broken God's law somewhere along the line. And so I said, what punishment should be applied to these, we are asked. Our reply is that we are not at liberty to punish our brother at all. The Lord purposes to do that himself. How about that? So you actually, the old organization was kinder about this type of thing. But I have in fact, while Rick is talking, I'm going to get a letter. I have a copy of Ray Franz's letter to a friend of his. And it tells in there something that I think that everybody will appreciate. So if you'll do that, I'm going to go into my file drawer and get that letter.
All right, good. Go ahead. Do that, Barbara. But no, we started out today. We, and on JW World News tonight, too, we'll play the videos again. There was at the regional convention, the Have Patience convention, there was just this, in the last couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago, they started their regional conventions. Let's go with that. And they played 2 videos at the regional convention that were actually taken down. And so many people would say, well, why'd they take them down? But I have downloaded them, and I do have them. So we're going to play it on the news. But it's terrible what they're doing to people. They're actually encouraging, and at least in that video, to even shun your mother or any close friend even. I mean, a friend is one thing, but a relative is another. So it was a really big thing, and plenty of people have been, making all kinds of theories on why they take it down. But we don't even have to theorize here. All you have to do is get on the money trail. This is going to cost them money. As we mentioned, there's already so many countries that are looking into the Jehovah's Witnesses and looking at their shunning practice. Did you find it, Barb?
Yes, I did.
I want to hear it.
Okay. This is written by Ray Franz, January 26, 1993, to his friends in Wenatchee, Washington. And he's talking about his uncle, Freddie Franz. And so he says this. I'll read the whole paragraph because it's got some other points in it that you'll all find interesting, I'm sure. One major occurrence since last writing has been the death of my uncle, Fred Franz, on December 22, 1992, at the age of 99. His death, in a sense, marks the end of an era. He was the only member of the governing body who was baptized as of 1914, the year so crucial to witness beliefs, and evidently was the only member who had personally met the founder of the organization, Charles Taze Russell. Now, here is some good meaty material that we want to think about. He's talking about Fred Franz. He said, Fred Franz, was the architect by far the majority of the post-Rutherford doctrinal structure. And that's what I've been trying to say for years, because I found information at headquarters that says the same thing. Rutherford, it was Freddie Franz, the oracle, that wrote most of Rutherford's stuff. So then it said, as well as the formulator of much of the policy relating to disfellowshipping matters. So it was Freddie Franz. That is the man who was the formulator of the disfellowshipping, the whole deal. And you can see, he guided the organization through all sorts of crazy things. And it hasn't changed. Once he died, the oracle died, and the organization has been floundering, trying to find a place for itself. And we've seen these changes. I had information in 2004, a big meeting, and with all the branch overseers, and they discussed by 2014 it would be an entirely different organization, and it certainly was. Well, has stayed with same old policies from 2014. They are going through this, going through that, and no wonder they don't come out with a Watchtower twice a month, because if they have nothing to put in it. They don't discuss dogma, and they have very few things to say except how to keep what we got. That's the problem. They're making decisions to not bring in people. They're making decisions to keep who they got in. And so at the same time, you have these, just the way it was when I was in the running department, that you have one bunch of men who want this done and another bunch who are against it. And who's the strongest wins. Of course, strongest in what they have to say. And it has never changed. And so we're seeing this, but who's the ones that suffer? It's the members. The members. Every time they go through some strange new way of thinking, who suffers? It is the members. And then you have to try to please Jehovah by what they say is necessary to do to please Jehovah. So the thing is, by their acts you will know them. And I got to tell you, I celebrated an anniversary just recently. And my anniversary was May 19th. And May 19th, 2002, I was disfellowshipped. And what was the reason for this fellowshipping? Isn't there a scripture that they use? 1 Corinthians 5:13. Remove the wicked person from among yourselves. I got that right out of that disfellowshipping bunch of papers, 800 pages that they put out last year. That was right there. Remove the wicked person from among yourselves. So May 19th, 2002, I was expelled. For what? What was my wicked thing? For causing
division. And nobody will know, but they'll all be gossiping.
For causing divisions. I caused divisions. I went public, which my son said was the worst thing I could have ever done. He said, you went public. And I laughingly say, and I've said it on this program many times, I broke the 11th commandment, thou shalt not go public. Well, that's what Vardy did. Rebecca Vardy went public. She kept the secrets all these years. Why did she go public now? Well, she's raising, I believe, 4 children or 5. Some are his and some are theirs. And she had a miserable childhood. The articles and the TV program, she shows that. And so the members are, those who are leaving are not quiet anymore. And the Watchtower wants to survive, don't they? So what can they do? They can't disfellowship her. They can't disfellowship me any more than they already have. And we are not quiet about what they do. Today, someone called me and said, I gave your name. I'm not going to tell you to who, because I'm going to see if something comes out of it. But it's a very famous individual who has tremendously influence with women podcast, and they're interested in interviewing you. Aha, great, because I got a lot to say. So if they want to stop us from saying this, tell them to get rid of shunning, get rid of disfellowshipping, start acting like people who have love. We don't care what you believe in. I don't care. Everybody's so different. And so they argue religion. And people have argued about God as long as the people have been on the earth. That is not the issue. It's kindness, love. That is the issue. And of all things, for people to treat others like Rick was talking about in a family, the mother and the daughter, like they showed, and they must have realized, or they got from the first few assemblies that it was seen what the mother and the daughter, and about the father, and the sadness and the statements that were made. It could be that the members were calling and writing in about this. So we don't know the answers. We're just very grateful that there's somebody at headquarters who leak that information, and also is leaking other important information that we can give the authorities. Because the children, the dogma of religion is important to the believer, but we all basically have children or deal with children. That should be the most important thing in our lives, and not arguing over dogma. So they're not even talking about dogma, but they're trying to keep people in an organization that's floundering. And what else I can say about it? I can't. I've said it all.
Yeah,
So-
that's it really is. Shunning is a monumental issue, Barbara. It is just something that you're not going to get anyone outside the Jehovah's Witness world to agree with them on.
Yeah.
And you would think that they would backpedal. Maybe that's what they're going to do. Now that we have these nations looking into them, it's just a monumental issue. Hey, let's do this. Let's open up the lines. Let's open up the lines. You have something?
I like to hear everybody.
Yeah, let's hear some people. Come on. Say hello. Say hello to Bob. You're on with us. 540. Go ahead. What do you have to say?
Hey, Barbara. What
Hey.
I think their game is, they're money theists. They worship money.
Oh.
And if they can split the family, then the adult child that wants to give money to Granny will give it to the organization. And the elder member who's been a witness for years, they'll swoop in and try to get their estate. So they're interested in getting the money from these two different groups where they'd have inheritance otherwise.
Yeah, there's a department at Bethel that does this. They call up because remember they have the record of the wills that the older folk have sent a copy. Their lawyers send a copy to headquarters when they leave their estates to the Watchtower. So they're very pushy at Watchtower. Usually it's been women who call on the phone, and they very pushy. People have told me who should have received an inheritance from the grandmother or the mother or father. It all went to the Watchtower. So they end up in court. Many times Watchtower, they just they fight over the money, and then they give in and they make a settlement for somebody's money. Oh, yeah, they really want the money. Well, look at the Mormon church. That isn't a scandal of the billions and billions of dollars that they have in their accounts and the way they've been investing and the way they've been using that money. And that's been all over the paper. I put a big article on that on my Facebook page. The churches are, they don't have a good reputation. It's all money. And so that's why there's such a decrease in membership. So it's not saying that people are turning away from a personal belief, but they are turning away from the greedy religion. Watchtower used to call everybody a greedy religion. They used to hit hard at the Catholic Church over child abuse and watching the world in the wake. And then they stopped because they were just as bad, hiding. Why they go this way? Why do they, of all people who say they love God, and they're the worst about all of this? I don't get it.
Yes, they are the worst. Okay, let's go with area code 614.
That's me, I think. This is Michael. Rick, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Mike. What do you have to say?
Well, your timing is impeccable, okay? First, I believe you talked about the 10 Commandments. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
I heard that. Okay, well, the Jewish holiday today is when the Jewish people received the 10 Commandments. So they're celebrating that holiday. Now, also, these 10 Commandments, they mirror each other. The first 5 commandments are about the relationship with you and God, and the second 5 is about the relationship with one another. And the one, honor your father and mother, they put that there. It mirrors the one about God. The first one is because if you can't honor your father and mother here on earth, you can't honor your Father that's in the heavens. So to me, that's just impeccable. When the fact that if you can't show love here on earth, how are you going to show love to your God that's in the heavens that you've never seen? So that's
good point.
And then the other thing, I went by the Kingdom Hall today, the one where my father built, and they're remodeling it. And I pulled into the gate, and there was 2 sisters out there, and I started a conversation with them, asking about the hall, and they said, "Yeah, we're remodeling. We got 3 different congregations." And I said, "You know something? My father built this hall. We lived right down the street, and my father built this, and I remember going to the stone yard with him when I was a kid and pulling out the stone and putting it in the truck and bringing them here." She said, "Oh, is your father still a witness?" I said, "No, he's long gone." But I took his place, and I started to build Kingdom Halls all over the United States, and I did these 3-day halls. "Oh, that's great, your brother." I said, "That's how I was associated. I got associated with Fred France." And when I asked him about, and you heard my story before when I talked about the 5-7 date and the 607, I told Fred France in 1973 that I studied Jewish history, and that those dates didn't happen. So all his calculations are wrong. And I said, "You know what happened to me when I said that? I got shunned. Man. And I didn't say one thing that was wrong. 1975 never came. The temple wasn't destroyed in 607. And I got shunned. How do you think that made me feel? I said, I lost my family and everything because I told the truth. Now you're into an organization. You're not into a savior of Jesus Christ. And so I want to offer Jesus Christ to you today, that he is the way, he's the truth, and he's the life. And they were shocked. And I also went on about Barbara Anderson. I learned that she said that Fred France was the one who came up with this 1975 date. I used that quote, Barbara, if you're listening.
Yes, I'm listening.
That you said.
Yes, you did.
I used your information, and there's one other thing. Oh, I went on about yours, Rick, about the Norway, about how about the Shunning, how they took the money away. So I used your information that today. Talked to about 4 Jehovah's Witnesses today, straight up at their place. So
Well, good
Thank
for
you
you,
for the
Mike.
show.
Well, good for you. My goodness, that's
Very nice
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Well, that
Well,
good.
part of it wasn't too good, but
Yeah. Well, no, it's very good. See that too. More and more people getting an earful lately. Hey, we have 602. Looks like Phoenix, Arizona. Go ahead, Phoenix.
Hey, Rick, this is Gilbert.
Yes, Gilbert.
And hey, check this out. As far as the shunning is concerned, I've talked to a few people, J-Dubs and stuff, and I always say, like, it's interesting that Jesus said, no, God, according to them, Jehovah said in their transfiguration, when Elijah and Moses appeared, he says, "This is my son, listen to him." So Jehovah says, listen to Jesus, but there's these people in the chat section, they're Jehovah's Witness apologists, and they'll always quote the Apostle Paul. We need to disfellowship because the Apostle Paul, because of so-and-so. Isn't it? And so what I tell people, I go, Elvis Presley sang a song about this, that this has been going on since the beginning of time, that Eve, our mother, and we carry her DNA, we won't listen to our husbands, we won't listen to our wives, we won't listen to our mom, we won't listen to our dad, but we'll listen to strangers. And this is why we have all of the problems, because God, or in this case, Jehovah, the God of Jehovah's Witnesses, specifically said, listen to Jesus. But they don't listen to Jesus, they listen to the Apostle Paul. And see, that's the whole thing. We're always listening to strangers, but we're never listening to our mom and dad. We're not listening to our brother and sister. We're not listening to the people that we love. We'll always listen to a snake, but we'll never listen to what our Father says. And our Father says, listen to Jesus. He didn't say listen to Paul. He didn't say listen to Peter. He doesn't say listen to Rick Farron or Gilbert or Barbara. You see, we have to learn to be good listeners. Now, that doesn't mean I can't listen to you guys or whatever. I'm just saying, but you understand the point. The Watchtower is always putting everything else above Jesus. When God made it very simple, he says, hey, this is my son, listen to him. And this is the point. Jesus said, stop judging. With the measuring stick that you measure, you'll be judged, right? And so Jesus gave numeral examples of something like that, where, the way you treat other people, treat other people the way you like to be treated. Nobody likes to be shunned, so don't shun anybody. But you see, there we go again, listening to snakes. We don't even listen to our wives, our mothers and fathers. And that's my take. And I just want to keep it very simple, Rick. Keep it simple.
Wow.
KISS.
That's what you do. You keep it simple, and it's something. But shunning is a very. I don't know if shunning's simple. I think shunning's complex. I believe that it's a very difficult thing. And I often think about this. I tell Susan, my wife, she has a couple of daughters that grew up on the so-called truth. And of course, Susan isn't a witness anymore, so they're shunning her. But, I keep telling her that this has got to start. It's got to start probleming them. It's got to be on their mind. They're not speaking to the mother. The same thing with Barbara's son. I can't see that a person can get up and look in the mirror and not think about their mother. They maybe look a little bit like her. Maybe you have the same way about doing business as your mother. So you got to think about your mother from time to time. And then you're thinking that you're shunning her. I think that's more of an emotional concern for a person who's doing the shunning than for the person even that's being shunned. I don't know how I could never do that to my mother. Yes.
And correct. The other point is this, like with Barbara and her son and others. Barbara was there when her son needed somebody to change his diapers and take him to the doctor. But he'll listen to strangers in New York versus the mother that took him to the doctor when he was a baby.
That's right.
And the same thing with Eve. Eve was there with her husband, but she didn't listen to her husband. She listened to a snake. And this is the moral of the story. The moral of the story, whether you believe in Adam and Eve or not, the moral of the story is listen to the people that are in your lives and don't listen to strangers. You and I, Rick, we don't meet. We never have dinner with the governing body. We don't know their family. We don't know their kids. We don't hang out. We're not casting judgment, but they're strangers. Mom and dad is not my stranger.
Well, right. I mean, that's
So
I like what you just said, Gilbert. You know, at one time, everyone was a little baby, and you had to have the loving care of your parents, specifically your mother. And your mother changed your diapers, and your mother did take you to the doctors, and your mother had to make special food that you could eat when you were little. How can you just totally discount that?
That's right.
You know, how can you do that? Geez, you only have one mother. And you know, this is gonna really come down on the Watchtower. You know, I'm gonna bring this up. We're in the person brought it up earlier. I believe it was Martha, and thank you, Gilbert. And Martha brought up the idea of the woke crowd, all of these people that are, you know, they're trying to change everything, and everyone gets a winky button and what have you. Well, in this age of wokeness, the Watchtower now has got to really come clean. You know, everyone's getting rights. All of the people that have been discriminated against and chastised for years, boy, they're stepping forward now, and the government's giving them reparations and helping them out and giving them special privileges. So, you know, in this age of wokeness, shunning is not going to be able to take place. That's discrimination. And maybe this age of wokeness will help us. Maybe it will help us. I mean, I'm not into the woke scene, but maybe there's something good that might come out of this. Okay, we got more coming in, Barbara. We looks like we get Linda James. Linda, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yes, please. Hi, Rick and Barbara. Barbara, I heard you say earlier that, you know, it was your fault for teaching your son to shun. And I hope that you can have some forgiveness for yourself, because
sure.
You were deceived, you know, and that's what narcissists and cult leaders do, is they get other people to do their dirty work, which is what parents do all over. You know, the Watchtower.
It was such an attractive package that what the Watchtower offered, understanding the Bible like nobody else does, and the wonderful opportunity to never die and live forever. So people who listen and love that message, so they pass it along to their loved ones. And
absolutely,
you know, so we did it out of a good heart. And we understand the situation. We don't find, we're not bitter at all. In fact, I really appreciate what different people are saying. And I want to show you this. This is an article in the Awake magazine. So appreciating godly parents. This is our son wrote this, and it appeared in the August 8th, 1993 Awake. And he said that it was after his wedding. And so in the beginning, he thanked us for being so helpful with the wedding and so forth. But then he says, have you ever wondered why I have been able to stay on the straight and narrow? Because beside my love for Jehovah God, I've always had great respect for you both. This respect has been so strong that, coupled with your discipline, it has caused me always to think twice when doing things and making decisions. The success of my life in doing God's will is indeed due to, in large part, to your consistent love and discipline of me and your undying devotion to Jehovah and his organization. If I were to take all the memories of my childhood about the two of you and were to combine them, they would say that although I may not remember everything you said, I do remember your outstanding conduct, especially your love for others and for Jehovah. So that was the love in 1993. But when I went forward to talk about the lack of love for children who were being abused in this organization, and nothing was being done about it, then everything changed. The love went, because that I could not penetrate and get through to him. And this is the same way with most families that have the shunning. You can't get through to them the truths that you're trying to say or why you have left. And so you just deal with it. But if the government, if our governments throughout the world enact human rights laws that protect children, then the Watchtower is going to have to protect children too, whether they want to or not. They are doing certain things right now. Most of the cases are older, but they are doing the right things now because they have to, because of laws. So it's a shame that it had to take the world's laws to make them aware of how they were falling down as far as guides for us in regards to the most important thing is, as you all have been saying, the family. And isn't that in the Bible? It specifically says that your mother and father, that no matter what, that you have been there to help your mother and your father.
You're right, Barbara. Absolutely. We got time for a couple more callers. We got to go to 714. They've been trying to come in. 714, come on, you're on with us.
Hi, Rick. It's Nadine. Hi, Rick. It's Nadine.
Hi, Nadine.
California.
Hi, Nadine. Yeah, come on nice and close to your phone so we can hear you good. Yep.
Okay, so I'm driving right now, so I hope you can hear me.
Yeah,
but I had to call in because I heard there's this new part on the assembly that they were going to show, but they decided to not show it. But some of the YouTube channels were showing it, and it's the or I guess so they didn't explain it because like no birthday, with the shame. So I guess they took this part out of the assembly, but I've seen it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's what we've been talking about. They did take that part out. They had 2 video clips they took out, but we're going to be talking more about it on the news coming up here shortly. Well, but thank you, Nadine. Thank you for checking in with us. Appreciate it. Now, you be careful driving. Okay, let's go to 520. 520, you're on with us. Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Rick?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. You're on with us.
I have a lot of questions about this fellowshipping. Number one is I've been going to Kingdom Hall since 1960, and that's when they were disfellowship people and saying what they were disfellowship for. I grew up like that. When I was a teenager, being black, a white elder told me if I do anything, he's going to disfellowship me. I wasn't doing anything. When you grow up at that type of way of life, it's not a great one. I talk to elders all the time and ask them, why do brothers and sisters have to write a letter of apology to you guys? And none of them came up with an answer. I said, it's almost like going to a parole board and saying, I committed this, I did this. Then they review it. And I said, didn't they already say they were sorry, forgiven by Jesus Christ? Why do they put people through all this misery for? It's not right. I said that you're being rejudged by men now. Where does it come in the Bible and says that? And they just look at me and they don't come up with a good answer at all. And that's as if they do write a letter of saying that. Where does the letter go? Where does the letter go at? And who gets the letter? Do they keep it on file?
Yes, they keep it on file.
They have the right to read the letter?
Yes, they read it, keep it on file. In a file, used to be in a file folder. Now it's on the internet. No, I'm going to take that back. Digitally in the computers, they have massive amounts of all of these things were they've scanned. They started scanning all the hard copies. Some of those men, I can't understand how they can live with themselves. When you're in the service department for years and you hear these stories constantly, because if you're the person that somebody has to talk to in the state of Texas, and so you answer the phone when someone's calling in from Texas, and you hear horrible things, because that's why they're calling in. Elders are calling in, or circuit overseers are calling in. And if you hear this day in and day out, year in and year out, of the proclivities of the members and the problems that they have, or the accusations that they have, of the court cases, wouldn't it eventually make you wonder if this could be God's organization? So I think that most of them are dedicated to an organization, and they have nowhere else to go.
I think that it's out of control. About 20 years ago, they had it out that black people were getting this fellowship for fornication, and white people were getting this fellowship for bad business practice. And I said, well, how do they know? And how can they divide up the races like that? And what do they know? It's not, there was a big rumor out back then. And I told one of the elders that that's racist itself, because sitting at every committee meeting, like white and black, people are people. They're going to commit a sin. I said, what? And you're right. But I've seen that growing up. I've seen that years ago at the assemblies. The assemblies were black people were cleaning the toilets and putting up the trash, and the white people were back in their offices dealing with the money. You know, they changed it over years, but it needs to be some changes in this religion. It's too much. It's too much for people to hurt people who are elders. Too much gossiping. People know what's wrong, and they're blindsided. That's all I gotta say.
Well, that's a mouthful, brother. No, that's well. Thank you for saying that, because listen, we listen with our ears wide open. So many people have been hurt.
Right.
Barbara, let's go to 308. We got 308. Go ahead, 308. Come on, say hello to us.
Hi, Rick, and hi, Barbara. First, I wanted to thank you, Rick, for this platform that you go international with, and Barbara, for all the help you've been in exposing so many things that were in the writing department. And y'all were talking about the military earlier. And my uncle was one of the ones, as a conscientious objector. There were so many young brothers that were like that, and they all got sent to prison. And my uncle said there were so many of them that they held their regular meetings, every day. They didn't have any literature. They were allowed a Bible, and one of them would every morning, do a text from what they would prepare. And then, they wouldn't make up their regular meetings and have them regularly in the prison. And the prison didn't have any problem with it. And he said the time in prison wasn't bad because they all had each other. And that's where they wrote a lot of the songs in the, the old song books.
Yeah.
That were, I think it was pink and one of them was green first and then pink. But anyway, they wrote a whole lot of those original songs in prison, because there was like 300 brothers in the same prison with him. And then the other thing, you said that they never came right out and said that if you joined the military, you would be disfellowshipped. But there was a brother in my congregation when I was around 13 or 14 that I was real close to, because his little girl had gotten killed asleep in the driveway, and she was the same age as me. And he kind of made me like his little girl and did things. And he had a real hard time providing for his family because his mother had a heart attack right on the scene because she was babysitting when the little girl got killed. And the mother went completely insane, and he was left alone with a son. And finally, he got a job in Memphis at the depot. I can't remember what they called it, but it's where they made the bullets and things, for to be used in wars and things like that. And I remember that he was told that if he didn't get a different job, not associated with the military or any kind of military extension like that, that he would be disfellowshipped. And he said, but this is the only job I can find. I'm older now. And 6 months later, he was disfellowshipped, even though it never came right out. And it was, I remember I cried and cried because I loved him so much, like another father, because, the witnesses are your family, when that's all you know, and you're taken away from being around your worldly family or your biological family, technically. And, it's really sad. And he died that way. He died very depressed and alone, without his wife, without his daughter, without his mother. And his son just kind of left him, But he didn't care anything about being a witness. The son didn't, but the brother did. And it was a sad situation. But anyway, thank you for listening, and thank you for all the help that you provide for everybody.
Yeah, there's so much sadness, so many years and years and years of this. Well, heart goes out to you.
Well, Barbara, I have to tell you, we have so many people that have been touched, as we say, by the tentacles of the Watchtower. And you've helped so many, Barbara. And I want to, give you a badge for that, because really, people talk about your experience in the Watchtower and tell other people. You're involved in writing the Proclaimer's book. You're involved in the service department. That's very meaningful when people come in here. It has a lot of credibility when you come on, Barbara. So we really do appreciate your presence here on the 6 screens. And we're going to do it again in 2 weeks. So I'll be in touch with you. Now, what would you like to tell the audience before we wrap this up? It looks like Barbara might be frozen. Barbara, I think you're frozen, are you? Yeah, it looks like she is. I'm not sure why, but that does happen sometimes. Barbara does appear to be frozen here. But Barbara, anyways, I think you can hear me. Thank you very much for wanting to come on tonight with your program. Watchtower Insider Tells All. And of course, that's a Barbara Anderson. And we really appreciate her presence here tonight. Barbara, thank you. I see that you did disappear. I think you're having some computer trouble, but that's good that we had you on tonight. All right, we're going to be going to JW World News. That's the news. The Watchtower doesn't want us talking. Well, let me bring Barbara back on.
Yeah.
Hello, Barbara. Yeah,
I don't know why.
I think it froze up on us. But anyways, Barb, we're going to move on to our other program tonight. But I want to thank you very much for coming on and being with us. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. And I'm that information pusher longer. If it can help people, that's all that I care about.
Well, it's helping people, and we'll see you in 2 weeks with your program. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. And Rick, I thank you really for what you're doing. It's a great help to so many people. And don't ever think we take you for granted. We don't.
Well,
so
thank you.
With that, I'll say good night.
Good night. All right. Well, there you go. Well, we thank Barbara for that. All right. Listen, we are going to JW World News. That's the news the Watchtower doesn't want us talking about, but we talk about it here on the 6 screens. Don't go anywhere. Come right back in about a minute or two, and we'll be up with a new broadcast. We're ending this one. I got to skip over to the other studio. So let's